particular award, considering the transformation that they've been going through at this time. So I really want to give the staff congratulations, the school, but also our young people who've been involved. Karen, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that.
No, thank you for raising it. I think they have, as you say, achieved an amazing award, which is just brilliant. And I was at the award ceremony, and I think the passion shown by our staff and by the young people for the work they're doing is really incredible. So well done to them.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody would want to pass on their good wishes.
Can I ask a question here, which I'm trying to find out information about? It's about the arson attack at Fairshare. Does anybody know anything about it? Because it's of vital importance for this district, because they supply a lot of food to our food banks.
I will ask officers to perhaps give an update after the meeting in Councillor Spears, and that allows them to be able to access information in the meantime.
That would be super, thank you.
Okay. Okay, if we can move into our meeting proper now, and the first item is the minute of the meeting held on the 9th of May. Are we happy to agree that as a true minute? Is there any information requires in any of the items that looking for any actions on? No. Okay, thank you. Item 4 is a rolling action log, and I'll go to Mr. Moody.
Yes, thank you, Convener. The rolling action log is up to date, but it is available for members to ask questions on any of the items listed within it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions on the rolling action log? No. We will move into item 5, which is the growth deal, and I will go to Mr. Binney. Paul, sorry.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of the report is to update Executive on the progress of the Falkirk growth deal towards outline business case stage for the 10 main projects and seek approval of changes to the governance and assurance framework. Specifically, the report seeks approval of the revised governance and assurance structure and framework, and notes that a report asking for approval of the full growth deal full business case will come back for consideration later in 2023-24. Executive will recollect that in August 2022, Council approved the growth deal programme, the governance arrangements, and also the intention to create an insurance framework with project boards and the formation of the investment programmes management unit. That report also outlined all 10 projects and the Treasury Green Book approach to the approval of these. Across all projects, there is a combined investment package of approximately £141 million, and this will contribute to levering in an estimated additional £2 billion of private sector investment. The scale of this investment is unprecedented and represents a hugely positive opportunity for the Falkirk Council area. The Council is responsible for ensuring that there is a comprehensive management and governance arrangements in place to deliver the growth deal, and the Executive approved that governance and assurance framework in December 2022, and this was subsequently shared with both the UK and Scottish Government. Following guidance from both the UK and Scottish Governments, the updated governance and assurance framework, which approval is sought for today, is included in Appendix 1. The main changes are that the business case approval process is amended to reflect a more iterative approach to the development of business cases. The previous approach would have resulted in any changes, even minor ones, seeking Council Executive approval, and this could delay progress. The revised approach will see the Council and Growth Deal partners liaise back and forth with both the UK and Scottish Governments to get proposals into a format where all parties believe are reflective of the Treasury Green Book and outline an effective and efficient delivery of the Growth Deal programme, whilst ensuring that the outcomes are those best achievable. This change will allow for a better flow of ideas and information during the development phases, make it more expedient, and it will also result in a quicker development of project outline business cases, the full deal document and full business cases. The final draft of the full document and the project full business cases will continue to be signed off by Council, and therefore there is no dilution of the formal decision making. In addition, to ensure that there is autonomy and independence of the investment programmes management unit, they will directly report any governance matters direct to the Growth Deal Programme Board and the Director of Place Services, rather than the Head of Invest Falkirk, who is also the senior responsible officer for the delivery of place-based projects and oversees the technical development of project business cases. This will decrease the risk or even the suggestion of any conflict of interest, given that there is also shared line management between Growth Deal project leads and the IPMU, whose job it is to scrutinise these projects. It was also felt that the governance structure implicitly included sign-off of the full deal document by elected members. This has now been changed to make sure that it is explicit, and this will strengthen the role of elected members in decision making. Members should note that the Falkirk Growth Deal Programme Board, chaired by the Chief Executive, includes representatives of partners and both the UK and Scottish Government, and has been bi-monthly since September 22 and is supported by 2 boards, one leading on innovation and one leading on place-based projects. These lead on the progress of the projects that are identified in the Falkirk Growth Deal, and it's pleasing to say that substantial progress is being made on these projects, with the target of signing the full deal estimated to occur in spring 2024. In the intervening period, projects are expected to achieve draft outline business case submission in June to September 2023, with the draft full business case then being submitted towards the end of 2023. It should be noted that the signing of the full deal heralds the commencement of the delivery stage of the growth deal, and at that stage that enables the unlocking of funding. In conclusion, Convener, the revised governance and assurance framework as outlined within the report is an important step to securing the investment the growth deal will deliver, and will ensure that project business case development processes are more iterative and more efficient. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Kentrick. I'll go to Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Paul. As outlined in the report, good progress is being made in delivery of the 10 growth deal projects, and these will deliver over £140 million of direct public sector investment in the Falkirk area, and will unlock an estimated £2 billion of private sector investment. The projects will create extensive high-value jobs, support the just transition to a more sustainable and greener economy, and help regenerate our town centres. The proposal in the report are to amend the approach to governance based on the feedback from both the UK and Scottish governments, who between them are providing the vast majority of the funding. The revised approach, involving officers working closely with partners and counterparts at the national government, will enable business cases to be developed without having to come back and forth to this committee, which will only slow down the process and prevent the quick progression of our growth deal. Delays in progress will most likely result in increased project costs, which we all are well aware of, and this could mean some being revised or abandoned due to the affordability. This approach does not lessen the input from members, however. We have already agreed the heads of terms of the growth deal, as we have agreed the projects and their outcomes, and will continue to have oversight as business cases develop and ultimately come for final approval. I don't think it would be appropriate for us to stand in the way of progressing the growth deal projects, which will deliver massive and unprecedented investment in our local economy. We do not want to risk the delivery of significant numbers of well-paid jobs for the sake of scrutinising every dotted I and crossed T in outlying business cases, when we still have the opportunity to keep updated by officers through regular briefings, and ultimately we will need to approve the full business cases. The growth deal is a likely component in the Falkirk areas to support our local and national businesses and grow our economy. If we want to increase our local prosperity and continue to attract both UK and Scottish Government support, we need to be seen to get on and deliver it as effectively and efficiently as possible, to work in collaboration with them. Happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. I'm happy to formally second the report. The proposal around the iteration back and forward is no different to other aspects of work that we do with Scottish and UK government over large projects, and I think that there needs to be the opportunity opportunity given to allow that to develop. The final sign-off will come back in front of council to do that, and members will be kept up to date with the progress of the various projects. There's a great opportunity here for a huge amount of investment into the Falkirk Council area, but the impact of that investment to both the Scottish and the national economy is also significant. Therefore, I think it's important that there's time taken to get that right and as robust as possible, and be able to move into that delivery phase as quickly as possible. So I'm pleased to see this report come forward. I thank officers for their work and the continued work that's going on behind the scenes, because there's a huge amount of time and effort being invested in that, and with the oversight of the Chief Executive. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. I would also like to welcome the project business case for the growth deal, but I do see some problems arising from not dotting the I's and stroking the T's, because we are here to make sure that local people and their interests come first. There is concern that locals won't get these proposed jobs and bring prosperity to our area. But my main question is on paragraph 3.3.1, and I would ask the portfolio holder for climate change to maybe interject here where it says substantial positive and negative impacts during both construction and post-construction periods. I think we need a bit further info, really about emissions, noise. We've seen when they've knocked things down in Grangemouth before, the rat population moves into the town. There's a great deal of problems can arise for the locals who actually live here. So maybe if the portfolio holder could expand on that statement, that would be helpful.
I think that particular question is more appropriate to go to Mr Kestrick, Councillor Spears, because he will have much more of the detail, having been involved in the board and the discussions.
Convener, happy to provide clarity on that point. As we've highlighted, that this is a governance report in terms of how we manage the business case process. The individual projects have detailed business cases for each of those, and as you know, as we've stated there, each of those projects, as they go through the business case, will be evaluated for their climate impacts in terms of both positive and negative, the construction and supporting sustainable businesses, improvements to the climate change and supporting the just transition for industry. That will be clear as we start to present the full business cases. But in terms of this report, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to include any detail on those whilst we are at that development stage.
Sorry, there has been an implication that there'd be a simplified planning process. I think that's what not dotting the I's and stroking the T's means. So we want to be assured, especially here in Grangemouth, that the I's are dotted and the T's are stroked, and that the people will be able to live in safety.
Mr Kestrick, again, you've reiterated this is a governance report, and that further detail would come at a later stage.
It would, Convener, and can also highlight that the growth deal is separate from the Green Freeport, so there is no simplified planning approach in relation to growth deal projects. They're completely separate from the Green Freeport.
So we will have a full planning process in place. Thank you.
The planning process will be in line with NPF 4 as well. Okay, Councillor Garden, I'll come back to you to sum up, but just let me see if there's any other members' questions. Councillor Nimmo?
Yep, thanks very much, Convener. Again, I welcome the growth deal and the investment that's planned going forward. I do have some serious concerns regarding accountability and elected members' involvement in these major projects. There's 10 major projects, a large budget of over £141 million. I would like to see elected members involved throughout the process and not just receiving a very large document at council asking for us to take a decision. I think we need to be included in the process going right through to a certain extent so that we're aware of what's going on. Final sign-off, like I said, we need to know what's been going on in the lead up to the final sign-off, not just getting a big document and ask for a decision. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. Really appreciate the words for Paul and the steps that will come forward that we will see and be accountable for everything that comes forward. Really, we just need to go on with it, and I hope that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Paul, do you want to come back on that governance? I'm very aware that members have had a lot of information around the projects already, and those projects at this stage haven't changed. It's just developing the business cases as we go forward. But I don't know whether you want to say anything else in relation to just the governance and the potential delays that a back and forward an individual sign-off would create.
Yes, thanks, Convener. The original proposal in terms of governance was quite explicit in that any changes to business cases as they were developed from draft stage through to final stage would require to come here at every turn, irrespective of how minor or how major those changes were. Our proposal through this governance framework is to ensure that there is still that strong, effective leadership, and the elected members can do that, and that the decision making is focused on the defined outcomes and the robustness of the business cases, so that risks and performance can continue to be overseen and managed. But we need to be responsive to change manage things that come through Scottish and UK governments, whether it's changes to Treasury Green Book and things like that, which are quite technical matters rather than coming back here, because that will slow the process down, particularly if we're looking at full deal sign-off in the spring of next year. The longer that process goes on, the more difficult it will be to deliver all these projects within the budgetary envelopes, particularly at a time of quite high construction inflation. But also, these are economic development projects, so the quicker we get them progressed and developed, the quicker we can make those impacts. The governance and assurance framework ensures that there's robust internal controls and strong fiscal management, so members can take assurance that that's in place. But it also ensures that there's transparent reporting, hence why there will be regular briefings. There'll be more detailed information provided in relation to each of the projects. But in terms of decision making, we've tried to make that more focused to the full business case process, which is ultimately where the real decision making and the real observations can be reflected and taken back to UK and Scottish governments, rather than at the very early stages where a lot of stuff is very much an iterative process, as we've said in the report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kettick. As there are no other lights, I'll go back to Councillor Garner just to sum up briefly.
Thanks, Convener. I've never heard iterative mentioned so much in one report in my life. But yes, just to go back to what Councillor Spear says, in 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4, it's covered in there what the Council and other partners are going to be doing to tackle the climate change implications going forward, which I fully support. It's great to hear the members here are all fully supportive of the growth deal, and as one elected member has texted me there, can we just get a move on with this, please? Thank you, Convener.
I'm sure we would all like to see it progress as quickly as possible, because, as I say, there are great opportunities for us. But in that case, are we all agreed? Thank you. Item 6 is the Falkirk Council Tourism Strategy 23 to 2028, and we'll go to Michael.
Thank you, Convener. What members have in front of them today is a report on the Falkirk Tourism Strategy for period 23-28 for consideration. The report background provides information on our previous strategy from 2015, where with significant work by officers and partners, we exceeded our targets set at paragraph 4.5, a 28% increase on visitor expenditure with a target of 20% and an increase in overnight accommodation of 31% increase, which shows a really healthy tourism economy within the Falkirk area, exceeding the Forth Valley in itself. The report at section 5 outlines the analysis we have carried out with our partners and consultants in terms of identifying the segmentation process for the target market we are looking to attract to come and spend our money and spend our time in the Falkirk area. There are 6 different segment markets identified at paragraph 5.1. 5.2 identifies the areas of key actions we will be taking forward as part of this strategy. Building upon the key attractions we have 2 distilleries coming out onto the marketplace, we hope this year, and we think that will add a key addition to the whole range of portfolio of key attractions we have, from the Falkirk Wheel to the Kelpies to Calendar Park to our town centres. I think that's also very important. We have to increase our marketing and promotions. We want to reach further into the English market in particular. So there's a focus on rebranding our Visit Falkirk brand to attract more visitors to spend more time and more money within our local economy. We have to enable the successes, so we want to make sure we continue to engage, particularly with the hotel market. We believe there's some opportunities there to improve that particular market. So working with Business Gateway and the businesses themselves will be an important part of the work as part of the strategy. And again, as we often talk about, delivering through partnerships is really important in terms of tourism, particularly working with Visit Scotland, Historic Environment Scotland, Scottish Canals and various other partners, in particular the private sector, to ensure we achieve the ambitions set out in this strategy. One small correction I'd like to offer in paragraph 5.4. The last paragraph identifies a figure of 5% on the first line. That should actually be 20%, so I do apologise to members. So we're looking to achieve a 20% increase over 5 years, not a 5%. That wouldn't be very ambitious. So that just to highlight that to members for that small correction. And all this is a really ambitious strategy. There's lots of work to be done, particularly in partnership. We have amazing assets across the Falkirk area. We want to make sure we take advantage of those assets. We want to make sure we better connect up those assets, joint ticketing opportunities, making sure we make use of our amazing green space, make sure we enhance the historical attributes of our town centres is also a very important key part of our tourism strategy. But I just thought, very pleased to present this to members today to consider our future direction in terms of how we deliver a better tourism economy in Falkirk area. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I have much pleasure in moving this report. And I just firstly want to take a minute to thank officers for bringing the report to members for consideration. I appreciate the effort of the services across the council working together with our key stakeholders in the development of the new tourism strategy, which directly contributes to the strategic priorities of the council plan, supporting a thriving economy. Particularly in this post-COVID environment, the tourism sector has taken a significant hit during COVID and it is now in that recovery phase, and we need to take these opportunities as well. As highlighted within the report, the proposed new tourism strategy builds on the previous successes of our strategy from 2015, taking account of the challenges of the sector faced during COVID and ensuring that the green tourism opportunities will continue to contribute towards our climate emergency. 2015 to 2020 strategy set 2 targets. One's to increase the expenditure and overnight stays, both exceeded by 20% target. 2023 to 2028 strategy builds on that success of the previous strategy and builds on Falkirk's strengths and the market and opportunities that are presented. Falkirk tourism has been a success story over the past decade, stimulating in part by the unique attractions of the Kelpies and the Falkirk Wheel. Tourism and the visitor economy is important to Falkirk. 85 million spend generated by almost 600,000 visits in 2021 and supports a wide range of jobs and businesses. Beyond the economic benefits of tourism, it enhances the image and the reputation of Falkirk as a place to invest, work and live. Falkirk Council has been very attractive in supporting this. Falkirk Council has been very active, as well as attractive, in supporting this sector with a wide range of marketing activities carried out to encourage visitors to stay and spend in the area. Attracting visitors to the town centres will remain important. We aim to strengthen the relationship between key visitor attractions to Falkirk's historic town centres and district towns to deliver lasting economic benefits to the businesses and enhance the historical and cultural offers to visitors. As detailed within the report, the strategy focuses on a number of carefully chosen interventions, including building on Falkirk's strengths and market opportunity, and articulates a vision for the tourism in Falkirk, identifies the best prospect markets and growth areas. Collaboration will be the key for delivery and taking the actions required to ensure our visitors are welcome and they continue to contribute to the wider economic benefits for the people of Falkirk. And I'm delighted to recommend this report to members. We have a great history and heritage, we have iconic structures, and we have a great opportunity to grow and build a tourism sector, creating employment and delivering on our council priorities. And while it's been highlighted that one of the key council priorities is investing in our economy, creating that thriving economy, we also want to invest in our communities and making a great place to live. And with the green spaces we have, there's great opportunities to do that. So I'm happy to move the report. And I'll go to Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Convener. I'm delighted to second you on this. You spoke about the highlights, obviously, the kelpies and the Falkirk whale. And Falkirk has, as we all know, we've got so much more with Calendar House, Antrim Wall, Pineapple. We've got 2 new distilleries, especially distillery tours and things like that just coming up. There's a great opportunity here in this area. It's always been a strong area. The history in Falkirk goes back beyond Roman times, comes through through many decades. Falkirk has been the centre of Scotland and at times the UK, and particularly I'm thinking about one local we is where the Carn Works, and I think the opportunities to attract more tourism to the area is extremely high. I think 25% is we'll call it a reasonable target, and I would hope that we will increase that. Again, I'm happy to second the leader.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. I would like to congratulate not just the decades of success previously, but the ambition for the future. But ambition is one thing, reality is another. You rest, especially on tourism, on the last comment on TripAdvisor or social media. Things have dramatically moved on for the days that you're lucky to pick up a leaflet in a hotel where people extensively research any trips. I know I do before I go on holiday. You check your budget and you see where you can afford to go. Tourism is vitally important for this district. I believe it brings more money in and employment than Ineos does to the Falkirk area. We need to work hard and we need to make sure that we have the facilities for when people come here to visit. And as Councillor Boyce says, there's lots to see, there's lots to do. Is there enough places to stay? We need to work on that. Are the restaurants up to standard, or are we still a steak pie, fish and chips place? We need to work on that. There is new businesses where you can get tart and tapas, I believe, and I wish them every success. We need to make sure there's facilities, toilets. People can say, great place to visit, but don't go if you need a toilet. We need to work a lot harder and we need to target a lot harder. And let's face it, there's a lot to do here. There's a lot to see, but we also have a lot of people to employ, and we need to make we need to get that a bit more polished. So I welcome this report and I look forward to seeing you working with the private sector and how we can vastly improve not just what we do, but what they do as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spears. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Convener. I'll just echo Councillor Spears' point there about the toilets, because it really is such a basic requirement. And I think Blackness is such a great case in point of that. If we want to encourage people out to these locations, we need to have the bare minimum in place if we want them to stay longer than 30 minutes. But further from that, I am really encouraged that we're developing sustainable tourism plans. I do, however, feel like we're maybe missing a point on that, and I fail to see how we're going to be able to do that without investing more in our public transport. Falkirk does have a whole host of attractions spread across the district, but as it stands, half the residents of the Upper Braes can't access public transport on a Sunday. So it seems like to unlock the full economic benefits and have truly accessible tourism, then that's something that we're going to have to invest in. Are there plans in place to review or invest in public transport, because it would be of benefit to both tourists and the residents of Falkirk? And then just my second question on that as well. We do have amazing attractions, and we do have amazing local businesses that would benefit from more tourism. Is there scope for better signposting at the attractions that we already have, whether that's information boards, interactive apps? I know that we do have active social media channels, but are we actively looking at like even a TikTok page, because it's attracting different demographics? Just what are the plans around signposting to local businesses so that once tourists are here, they can really get the full benefit of what we have to offer?
Okay, Michael, do you want to take those?
Yes. Thank you, Convener. To you, Councillor Patterson, thank you for the questions. In terms of public transport, a good example of some of the work we're developing just now in terms of better connecting up our visitor attractions is we're working with Cycling Without Age organisation, looking at doing a connecting path between, well, the paths are there, cycling routes between Callander House, the Wheel and the Helix Park. So I think the real challenge for us is, active travel. How do we make sure when people come to this area, they stay, if they come to hotels, they park their car and they come out and visit our attractions, and we need to make sure we've got the facilities in place. Now, we can't deliver this all ourselves. We need to work with other organisations like the one I mentioned in terms of how do we get people to walk, to cycle, to find other mechanisms of getting around the local area. Our public transport has got challenges, and we'll do our best to make sure that we connect up the facilities, and if we believe there's an opportunity for us to provide some intermittent transport to get people from place to place, we'll look at that quite carefully and see if there is an option in that regard. But there are challenges within our public transport, as you fully are aware of. In terms of signposting, yeah, there's quite a bit of work we're doing with every kind of facility. We need to look at in the round what kind of capacity we have, what signposts are there, what interpretation boards are there, what information are we presenting to enrich the experience of our visitors. So that's something we will constantly look at. In terms of the world's moving so fast into digital, TikTok is an area I've been discussing with my colleagues about, Instagram, TikTok. We need to make sure we keep ahead of the call them fashions if you wish, or the technologies, more importantly, of how we communicate and engage with our customers and our customers of today and the future. So yes, a big piece of this exercise of the strategy is in terms of how we get to the target market audience and what mechanisms we use to reach them and to present them the best possible information we can to ensure they have a really welcome and enriched experience when they come to visit us in Falkirk.
Thank you.
Michael, just on that, I don't know whether you want to maybe say a wee bit about Visit Falkirk and how we engage with the local businesses and to help them get the benefits of the tourism sector.
Yeah, there's a number of elements to that. One is through the Visit Falkirk website itself to make sure we engage with our businesses to make sure that information is kept up to date and refreshed. And that's really important when people come to our website. They want to see what's the latest information. So I think that's important. We continue to engage. Our Business Gateway colleagues work with all businesses within the area, but obviously particularly in this case, looking at the offer from the hotels, the food and beverage offering, and again, that's a constant range of activities we have. Shared Prosperity funding has provided us additional capacity funding wise to make sure we can really focus on the tourism economy, and that's where we're going to spend a bit more money on our marketing campaigns to reach further south into England to attract more customers from that location. So there's lots of activity going on right across the piece, from the Visit Falkirk website to the technologies to engaging directly with the local businesses to make sure we give them the information, and importantly they give us the information to share with the target audiences we're trying to attract to the area.
Thank you, Michael. Again, it is exciting and it is encouraging that we are promoting active travel, which is commendable. I don't know if you've visited the Upper Brae recently, but I wouldn't take my bike out there. So I think we just need to, although yes, we need to have all of these services encouraged and available, I think we would be at risk of leaving the outlying areas unsupported and potentially isolated. I don't know what else other than a reliable bus service would enable people to move in and out of those areas, obviously if they didn't have a car. So I would really, just moving forward, for that always to be at the forefront of how people, obviously I'm biased towards the Upper Braes, but it applies to other areas as well, how we need to be mindful of keeping those residents connected and engaged and letting our residents access the amazing facilities that we have in the area.
I think there's ongoing discussions continually with McGill's about how we can look to improve access and improve the bus services, but obviously the council don't provide bus services. That's not our principal role, so we have to work with other public transport providers in order to be able to maximise that opportunity.
Thank you for that feedback, Convener. I would point out so that not too long ago it was tabled within council for us to have a review and look at providing a bus service, which was ultimately rejected by the council. So there are avenues available to us, it's whether or not we take them. Considering
the constraints that financially right now, that was decided that was not something we're in a position to be able to take forward, and that was, and that it still remains that position at this time. Okay, I've got Councillor Nimmo, Councillor Steenbank and Councillor Hannah. Councillor Nimmo.
Yep, thanks very much, Convener. The Falkirk Wheel, the Kelpies, Callendar House and the 2 new distilleries have been mentioned so far. Grangemouth seems to have been missed totally out of this report. It's not mentioned in the report, come to that. And you have to ask yourself, based on this strategy, why would people come to Grangemouth to visit Grangemouth? Zetland Park gets used. It's a fantastic park, but that's not going to attract a great number of tourists, to be honest. Are they going to come to look at BP and INEOS? I don't think so. It's not got the same appeal for a start. What are we going to be doing to encourage tourism in Grangemouth? It's already been mentioned about the bus service. It's pretty poor. Even trying to get an electric bike, you can't get an electric bike because the company's gone bust. So what are we doing to solve these problems, and what are we doing to help support the Grangemouth tourism going forward?
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, thank you to you, Convener, Councillor Nimmo. The objective here is to ensure we do our very best with the limited resources we have to work and engage right across the private sector and with our partners to bring forward the offerings we have. So you rightly pointed out that the huge investment we've made with partners in Zetland Park has been a really important asset within the Grangemouth area. We're constantly working with the businesses in the town to how do we provide a food and beverage offer for visitors to come and make use of. as you rightly pointed out, the challenges of a significant industrial refinery is not an obvious location for tourists to come and view. However, we have to do our very best with all the assets we do have and promote them positively to visitors who want to come to the area.
I think we should also remember the Kelpies are in Grangemouth.
Councillor Spears, please. Okay, Councillor Steinbank.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Great to see that we exceeded the 2015 strategy targets. We quite rightly credit the brilliant independent and small businesses in our town centre and our world-renowned modern and heritage visitor attractions. But clearly, in regenerating our town centre, we need to amplify footfall, and a clear way of doing this is translating a greater amount of visitor attraction visits into town centre visits. So I've got a few questions, the first of which is, what are the latest statistics available in relation to town centre footfall, and what are they indicating that might be relevant to this strategy?
Michael.
Thank you, through you, convener. We actually do have the figures. I don't have them to hand, Councillor Steinbank, but I can certainly provide the figures on the footfall within our town centres, which I believe has been improving. Obviously, from the COVID period, we'd expect that, but I'll be happy to share that information with you.
Yeah, thank you. Were those statistics used in the conclusions or priorities that might come out of this strategy?
Not directly. Obviously, the ambition for our town centres is to make them as vibrant, as healthy as possible. So we always look at opportunities within our town centres to create more footfall, working very closely with the local bid and the businesses themselves to provide a better offer and to attract people into our town. So they're very important statistics in terms of footfall, but not directly related to the strategy itself.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michael. Kind of relevant to my next question, which is at 5.2, we talk about a tourism business improvement district, perhaps being something we will explore. Would this be an expansion of the work of the current business improvement district, or would this be a distinct organisation?
Thank you, through you, convener. Yeah, the ambition here is to look at this as a distinct and special vehicle for tourism.
Thanks for that. Just my final question is sort of expanding on what Councillor Patterson was talking about in green tourism. Where would we be looking to prioritise in improving our active travel infrastructure in conjunction with a strategy to encourage more active visits around the area and around our visitor attractions, rather than reliance on individual car journeys, especially in line with the active transport strategy from Scottish Government and from the Council?
Thank you, through you, convener. As you rightly pointed out, active travel is a really important part of the green economy. We recently approved, so you recently approved the active travel strategy. This new tourism strategy is in front of you today. So as they are just two new emerging strategies, it's very important that we work again across our partners and stakeholders to how do we connect up the active travel strategy with our tourism strategy, so that work will be ongoing and an important part of the ambitions for net zero as well.
Thank you. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. I want to say thank you to the officers for this extensive piece of work. Tourism is clearly a really important way of bringing additional income into the Falkirk Council area. As Councillor Spears has already mentioned, the amount of money that it brings in, and that helps regenerate the local economy, which is really very, very important. Some of us have had some pleas, though, from our twinning associations, from the Odenwald Association and the Creteuil Association. Recently we had some visitors over from Odenwald, and they had a whisky tasting in the St Francis Xavier's Church. Now, I know that some people might have some concerns about the concept of German whisky, but I can assure you it went down very well. And the Odenwald Association is planning a return visit and to take over some of our important local products, whisky from our distilleries, Mrs Tilly's fudge, and the Scottish fine soaps. So they are keen to promote that. I'd like to just make a plea for officers to give what support they can to those associations because it encourages tourism into the area, and it is really an important way of doing so. Councillor Spears mentioned leaflets. I think one of the things that they would like is some good glossy leaflets to take over with them when they do go over. If people over there can see what it is they might be coming over to look at, that is really an important way of promoting. And I'm just making a plea really for giving every support you can to those twinning associations and others who are promoting Falkirk elsewhere.
Michael, we do have hard copies of a Visit Falkirk brochure, which is very good, and I know it goes far and wide. But
yeah, absolutely. I think the point you make, Councillor Hanna, regarding the town twinning, you absolutely need to take advantage of the opportunity of those partnerships have. So yeah, very keen to ensure we support them as possible in terms of their visits, and likewise provide them sufficient information in whatever format they require. So happy to ensure we do that.
Thank you.
I think we're a wee bit away from a Falkirk whisky though. I don't think we're quite there yet. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, convener. I was at the whisky tasting event. It's not quite Scotch. The smokiness of the peat's not quite the same, but it was a fantastic event. And it does show the strength of Falkirk's twinning associations when it comes to selling brand Falkirk. And one of the great things about Scotland is the diversity of the different cultures. Falkirk's different from Glasgow, which is different from Islay. And we need to take that into account when developing our tourism. What makes Falkirk unique? The Kelpies, the Wheel, the two distilleries with their own stories when they have the flavour, but it's also a heritage and a history as well. Councillor Bowles was talking about Karen Ironworks, Calendar House, Kinneil House and James Watt and the steam engine. We have so much history and heritage, and we should be tapping into that to show what makes Falkirk unique. Look at Amazon. One of the most popular TV shows was Outlander, looking at the Jacobite story of Scotland. Well, we have a Jacobite battle in our own backyard. It's very hard to know that it happened if you look at the tourism and the signs. So we should be all over that, maximising the cards that we have. The Karen Ironworks as well. It wasn't only creating weapons for the Battle of Waterloo, but it was at the forefront of public health improvement in Scotland, in the wider UK and continental Europe. So we should be celebrating all our different stories, what's unique to Falkirk and how we have empowered Scotland and the Union. The other thing that Scotland's known for is our beauty and our cultural independence. So the canal being linked with the Wheel and the Kelpies with the distillery in the middle, that is a fantastic opportunity for Falkirk. It's about 4 miles round trip, or 8 miles round trip, 4 miles each direction, where you mix beauty, whisky, innovation, mythology, everything that people associate with Scotland, and we should again be fully tapping into that. But how can we go further? Can we learn the lessons from the Royal Mail, for example, and have more tartan, more bagpipes, that Outlander, Braveheart that people associate with Scotland? Can we have that on our high streets so people are coming to the high street not only for retail but for an experience, a Scottish experience that is unique to them? And perhaps adding to that beauty, we can make the canal a 24/7 asset as well. The Wheel's lit up, the Kelpies are lit up, but there's parts of the canal path which don't have any lighting, so they only have the small lights which people don't think particularly work. So if we can make the canal a 24/7 asset, then that makes one of our most unique assets, a 24/7 asset which people want to use and participate in. And then on the final point, if the English tourism is the market, then we could perhaps invite them to the battle reenactment for the Battle of Falkirk. It's one of the few victories, so they can enjoy that, and then we remind them that we won it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bundy. Just to say, the Outlander sites are something we promote, and it's certainly on the Visit Falkirk website, and directing people to the various locations. And we do a lot of work with our colleagues in West Lothian about redirection as well, reciprocal to the various sites. I'll get Michael maybe to talk about, or Paul to talk about the Scottish Canals and the work that they're planning in and around the canal and the improvements, and indeed the art park, which will do exactly that. Is actually get more people out on the canal, walking and using the path networks. I don't know, Michael, do you want to come in first, and then maybe Paul can add if there's anything required to supplement?
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Bundy. In terms of the historic ancient monument of the canals is really important to us. The connection between the various different key assets is important to us. The Art Park project, which is one of our growth deal projects, will be an important part of improving the experience of those connections, and working closely with Scottish Canals in this particular case. We are developing some really good concepts. We have a number of artists involved in workshops and engaging with our communities in terms of what types of art and what types of connectivity, what types of activities would be appropriate in connecting up those particular assets that we own in the Kelpies in this particular case. So yes, that's something that's very important as part of one of our growth deal projects.
Thank you.
And of course, there is also the investment around Lock 16 that Scottish Canals is doing as well, and that is going to be significant, obviously, with their relocation of their headquarters, etc., which is something that's quite significant to be able to have in Falkirk, and we continue to have that close dialogue with them. Okay, as there are no other indications to speak, are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, which is the Enhanced Concessionary Sport, Leisure and Cultural Scheme, and we've got David Mackay who's going to take this report.
Thank you, Convener. I'm pleased to present the report of the Enhanced Concessionary Sport and Leisure and Cultural Scheme to members today. The purpose of this report is to provide the Executive with recommendations to enhance the current concessionary card scheme across leisure, culture and sport, and it aligns with the Council plan. Section 2 outlines the recommendations. The background is that we had a pre-existing concessionary card, which is called the Go card, which is available through leisure and cultural facilities for free or discounted access to a range of services across the council. It was recognised that the Go card offers considerable support to people living in low income, as well as benefiting the physical and mental health and well-being of our residents across Falkirk. And as a result, officers were asked to go away and consider further options to enhance the existing scheme, which they have done. Section 5 outlines the consideration. 5.2 highlights the fact the Go card scheme was benchmarked against the other councils in relation to the sports and leisure, and they're slightly different from some of the other benchmarking measures that we use through maybe education, etc., but they're detailed over the page and contained within section 5.2. Section 5.4 highlights the fact that ongoing consultation has been with the Falkirk Champs Board, and they've been particularly vocal and interested in this piece of work, and ask me, if not weekly, it feels like that, about where we are with this. So hopefully we'll get a positive outcome today in the back of that, and also as well as the fact that they recognise the importance that the concessionary scheme will have on the mental health and well-being of our young care experienced young people across the council. And section 5.5 picks up on that in terms of the national research available to that not only for care experience but for the wider population, and the benefits of being physically active has on health and mental health and well-being. Section 6 outlines the proposed way forward, and considering the current ongoing cost of living crisis, it was felt that this was not the time to remove any concessionary card scheme, but actually to obviously act on members' request to further enhance the scheme. So the plan is then outlined in section 6.2, where we then look to broaden the scope of the card targeting our care experience young people living within the Falkirk area, also then looking at asylum seekers and also other vulnerable groups across the council. And in section 6.3 and 6.4, it then there's some tables that are looking at the comparison between the Go Card and the proposed new Go Card Plus, and highlights obviously the additional benefits that will be available to individuals. Section 6.5 then outlines the communication and promotion of that, and that will be extensively communicated and promoted across the council if the proposal is agreed today. Section 7 outlines the implications, particularly the financial implications, and members are asked to approve the use of the carry forward from the previous Go Card scheme that was carried forward into this year to fund this year, and then the service would then look to work to fund the card beyond that point from within existing resources. Equalities, there's a full equality impact assessment attached to this report for members' consideration, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. I'm very pleased to be in a position to actually move this report today. As part of our poverty strategy, we looked at enhancing what was available with the Go Card, and through the further work that's gone on through our poverty strategy, to come forward with a further iteration of the Go Card Plus, recognising that the cost of living crisis is not going away and is going to continue to be with us for some time yet. But recognising that particularly mental health can be significantly improved with access to leisure and sport facilities, but also recognising that families that are on low incomes are struggling right now, and to enable them to have the same opportunities for activities as others, that this would enable them to be able to do that. Champs Board, you're absolutely right. They have asked at every opportunity, and we've been talking about this for quite some time, for years, and it was one of those things we eventually said that it's the right thing to do, so let's get on with it and do it. To go to the enhanced opportunity now, I know they will absolutely be over the moon with, because they spoke about that on Thursday evening. And while there's no hard data to indicate that this makes a huge difference to care experienced, the soft data significantly supports this move, and I know that they will look to promote that going forward. So I'm more than happy to propose this. The fact that it extends beyond including our refugees and asylum seekers is the right thing to do right now, and I hope that it will be able to make a significant difference in helping people, particularly over the summer period, to be able to access activities, and we will obviously look to have to review it as part of our ongoing processes in the future, but hope we'll be able to continue something very similar. Happy to move. Councillor Garner.
Thanks. What an extremely positive report we have in front of us. What an excellent thing to be taking forward. I was at the original meeting where the Champs Board that was mentioned by the kids and the young adults, and they were very keen to see this brought forward. So they'll be smiling just now, quite happy, and it came for them at the start. It was something I didn't know about at the start, but they were soon quick to fill me in that. Yes, happy to second you in this report.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. I would say promote, expand, enhance this card. In fact, make it a Go Plus card. We need to help families, but we especially need to help refugees and asylum seekers and people who we have asked to come into our community, coming from circumstances beyond, well, most people in here's comprehension. I've been in a battlefield before, and I'll assure you, if we can do all in our power to help. I'd like at this time to mention FOSS, the Refugee and Asylum Support Charity, who are doing great work and have approached me to make sure that this card is available to the people who are suffering from great mental and physical health I know we've got a lot of people that post are helping with clothes and you name it, they're helping. I believe living in the Cladden Hotel, we've got some living in the Helix Hotel in Grangemouth. I've met with some of these people. They're decent, honest people fleeing a persecution beyond our comprehension. And if we can do all in our power to help, that is called Go Plus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steinbank.
I'd just like to echo Councillor Spear's points, and it's especially a positive step of providing eligibility as well to those housed in the Cladden. As Councillor Spears has mentioned, for supporting the expansion of the scheme proposed today, hopefully a lot of barriers for those coming over will be broken down in the face of seemingly never-ending string of hostile policies from the Home Office. I'm glad that Falkirk Council are playing our part in making people feel more welcome in this country and valuing the place that sport and recreation has in providing that inclusion. Thanks, Convener.
And thank you, Councillor Steinback, and that's exactly why they are included in that recognition within the scheme. Okay, as we have no other indications to speak, are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item 8 is now the communal area cleaning, and we'll just bring forward Mr Gillespie.
Thank you, Convener. Okay. First, I'd like to take the opportunity, Convener, to thank Steve Bentley and his housing team who were involved in producing this report. As always, I appreciate members have read the report, and I will summarise the main points. Section 1 of the report provides members the purpose report and subsequent tenant consultation. Section 4 provides some background, and the cleanliness of communal areas and flatty properties is often raised by tenants as a concern. Officers were asked to prepare a report when considered options available to communal areas to be managed more efficiently and effectively. A pilot scheme took place in each of the 3 locality areas for a 6-month period. However, after feedback with residents about the impact of the pilot, it proved inconclusive, and a decision was then taken to initiate a full tenant survey. Section 5 outlines the options and the tenant consultation. While the communal area cleaning pilot was being carried out, we reviewed 3 other options, also evaluating how they could be implemented and impact on tenants and residents. The findings are outlined within Section 1, and I would draw members' attention to 5.11 of the report, where we are recommending to incorporate the cost of cleaning into the rental charges for all new developments within communal areas only. Section 6 sets out the findings of consultation with full details, including Appendix 1. Feedback from those who responded clearly outlines it's the tenant's responsibility to clean the closes and don't want a communal cleaning charge funded from the housing revenue account. Section 7 of the report outlines implications of the report, and implications are laid out within the section. However, for members' awareness, the cost of providing a full communal cleaning service would be in the region of £1.750 million paid by the HRA, and would require that to come from the tenants' rents. So in conclusion, having considered the options outlined in the report, we do not consider that the introduction of communal area cleaning service, either through service charges or full funding, should progress, with the exception, as I highlighted earlier, of new development within the communal close areas. I would refer members back to Section 2 of the report, where the recommendations are laid out, Convener, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Gillespie. I'll go to Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Mr Gillespie and the team for producing this report. There's one other person that has to be thanked on this, and that's former Councillor Alison Black, because it was her that brought the motion forward to get the cleaner closes done, and I wouldn't like to be taking credit for bringing that forward. That was entirely down to Alison. They have been carried out. The survey that's been carried out, the consultation that's been carried out by housing in their usual form, has shown that tenants believe that it's their responsibility to clean the close. They signed their missives. They understood that as part of the Good Neighbourhood Agreement, which exists in the council. It's something that if people had wanted it, that there would have been a charge for it. You then get the difficulties which we all as councillors will be dealing with tenanted properties where there is private owners in there, and then they're trying to get some work done, and it's not always easy to bring that forward. So that side of it becomes complicated. I've got to say that the results of the consultation in this case say more than anything else. I think the cost, 1.766 million according to the report, coming out of council tenants' rents, which is ultimately what would pay for it. And given that we've consulted the people, and the people have said that no, it shouldn't come out of that, because not everybody lives in a tenanted property. I'm going to keep it, you'll all be pleased to hear, relatively short, and say that I am happy to propose the recommendations in section 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bouse. Councillor Deacon.
Thank you very much, Convener. I would like to formally second this. I think it's clear that the residents don't want to have this. They agree that it's part of their responsibility. So I'm just going to keep it brief and formally second it.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up for debate. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. I would be first as a gardener and someone who likes to keep my area very tidy. That's when I get my brown bin lifted. Doesn't always happen. But we have a difficulty in Grangemouth. All areas are different. Under the Right to Buy scheme, we had the most flats in the area and many people did not buy their flats. Under the housing policy, we took a great deal of homeless people. We have a right not just to the people who live in our flatted accommodations and use the communal areas, but the people who live next door to them and have to put up with a rat problem in the communal bins. We have a duty to the people who live in high density flatted areas that they have a quality of life the same as people in the leafy lanes of Pullman and Larbour and the other more affluent areas of our district. We suffer greatly from a rat problem, and here we are under section 2.1. We will not develop a cleaning service for flatted properties with communal areas. I think we're neglecting our responsibility here, not just as a housing department, but as a council. People who live there and try their best to keep the area clean, and I agree with you, there's a lot of people don't. There's a lot of people can't afford the extra charge, but there's a lot of people, and it's our responsibility to give them at least the right to have a decent area to live in. We rely a great deal in Grangemouth on volunteers. Our glitter team, second to none. Our gardens, help groups, friends off, call them what you want, are doing a great deal of work, but they can't go round and clean the stairwells. They can't go round, and a lot of them do, clean out the bin areas. So we have a responsibility to people we put in flatted accommodation to give them a decent standard that they can feel at least at home in the place and they're not walking through a mess to get to their front door. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spears. I'll go to Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, Convener. Can I start off just by thanking Kenny Gillespie and his staff for taking my motion forward. It goes back to the motion that I presented back in 2021 and that's what's formed the basis of this report. Can I add that I'm a bit surprised at the outcome of the consultation exercise. It was a major consultation exercise which was conducted over every tenant in the Falkirk Council area. But I was also surprised at the cost of taking this forward, 1.7 million. I never thought for 1 minute that it would cost as much as that to implement this. The tenants have basically spoken. They've decided they don't want this. The consultation was against it. The one saving grace is that we're going to be able to use it as far as new builds are concerned. I think I've been vindicated in bringing the motion forward originally. At least it's highlighted the problems that the flats are experiencing. And Councillor Spears has already highlighted the large number of big blocks of flats in Grangemouth. There's particular issues there. What this is going to boil down to is enforcement. We need to make sure that there's sufficient funding and resources in place to make sure that we can actually enforce the cleaning of the closes. And that'll be interesting to watch that going forward. But thanks very much, Kenny. And if you can pass my thanks on to your staff, that would be much appreciated. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steinbank.
Not to add into what Councillor Nimmo said, but I've just got a few questions for clarification and also raised by constituents in relation to this. How many new build properties currently on the ship will the new close cleaning charge apply to?
Convener, that's a very good question, and I've not got the information with, but I can certainly come back to it. What I will say is, though, there will be some, but not a lot, because the ship mainly is looking at front and back door, and it's only where it will be special development. But I can certainly provide Committee with that information.
Thank you. 5.4 says the cost would be £7 per week if we were to implement this service. However, in the consultation, it goes between £2 to £5, what was recommended. Is there any model in which we could operate a close cleaning for between £2 to £5 per week?
That was at the time, sorry, Convener, for yourself, that was at the time that it was that we used other additional about the increased cost. The model itself still follows the basic principles, and it's up to the tenant's decision to do that. It's still a hefty cost, and that was of evidence and anecdotal evidence that we had, Councillor, at the time. We're saying £7, and I'm being balanced by saying £7. The cost of everything, as we know, has went up, so I would certainly say no, but I would err on the side of £7 being achievable. Just.
Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. As there is no further indications, I'll go to Councillor Bowes just to sum up.
Thank you, Convener, and thanks to everybody who's the questions. My apologies to Alan. I'm sure I remember Alison being very involved in it. I'm sure it was him that brought it forward, and quite rightly so. I think, as has been brought up there on the value of it, I think put the £2 to £5 in the consultation, and that wasn't accepted. I think £7 would probably be even less palatable to people. It's something that is a responsibility. It's in the missives that people sign. And I think importantly in this one, the consultation has come back and not in any small measure and rejected this. And I think a lot of the comments, people are saying it's their own responsibility. I do appreciate the new properties, and it will be instigated in them. However, I don't know that there's that many going to be tenemented because a lot of the houses we're building are straight houses. So I'll leave it at that, Convener. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are we content to accept the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Move on to item 9, which is the public possession event charging structure, and it is with another quick changeover, Douglas Garner.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from members to set out a charging structure for any public processions, such as public parades, static demonstrations and other relevant events held on a public road that requires temporary traffic regulation orders, or TTROs for short, and associated traffic management. There are two recommendations within the report. Firstly, to note the content of the report relating to public processions and other events on public road network requiring TTROs and associated traffic management costs. And secondly, to approve the charging mechanism for processing TTROs and the installation and removal of physical traffic management provision for events. And these are set out in paragraph 5.9 of this report. The background section of the report reflects that event organisers must take account of traffic management and road safety when proposing events like public processions, road races, street parties and other relevant events that impact the public road. All events must be assessed individually, having regard to the specific circumstances of the event. Prior to a public event, organisers must take account of traffic management and road safety, ensuring that the necessary precautions are taken to protect the event participants and other road users. Council officers liaise with the event organisers and Police Scotland to ensure that the necessary precautions are taken. This frequently entails closing a road, suspending parking and or putting in traffic control measures, and all events are assessed on an individual basis. As detailed within 4.4 of the report, collaboration is essential, in particular with Police Scotland, and in some instances, police managing traffic on an ad hoc basis may be more effective than use of public resources. May be a more effective use of limited public resources and cause less disturbance to community life. When a TTRO and traffic management arrangements are required, this could include, but is not limited to, road closures and associated signage and physical measures such as barriers and cones. Section 4.7 of the report recognises that the Council does not currently have a formal approved charging process in place for any TTROs and associated traffic management in relation to these events, and which party should cover the costs. It is the view of officers that the introduction of a policy would provide greater clarity for all concerned and ensure that our proposed approach is in keeping with the law. Moving on to considerations. Parades, processions and demonstrations come in all shapes and sizes, and how local authorities handle the road traffic implications of such events will depend on the individual circumstances in each case. Events can be non-commercial, such as public processions, charity and some community events, as well as commercial and profit-making events. Many events exercise Article 11, which is the right of peaceful assembly, enshrined within the European Convention of Human Rights, ECHR. The report notes that events which are primarily commercial in nature, ECHR rights are unlikely to apply. The report also highlights the Human Rights Handbook for Policing Assemblies, which was published by the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, of which the United Kingdom is a participating state. It's clear on the subject of costs for events that exercise the Article 11 right for peaceful assembly, not at least the which is traffic management and TTROs, stating the cost of providing adequate security and safety, including policing and traffic management operations, should be fully covered by the public authority. It is recognised that not all events are easily categorised into either Article 11 assemblies or full commercial profit-making assemblies. The individual circumstances, as I've highlighted already, of each case have to be taken into account, and consideration has been given to this in the proposed outlined charging mechanism, again outlined in paragraph 5.9. As detailed, events that fall within ECHR and are free to attend would have their TTRO and traffic management costs fully covered. Charity or community events that do not attract ECHR protection and charge an entry fee would be subject to meeting 50% of the TTRO and traffic management costs, and commercial profit-making events would be subject to covering the full cost. This proposal complements the position outlined in the position statement on marches, parades and static demonstrations, road traffic issued by Police Scotland and COSLA, as well as the ECHR and OSCE guidance. Internal consultation is taking place specifically between the road service and legal services to understand the Council's legal obligations in this matter, and intelligence has also been sought from other local authorities who have applied measures in relation to their charging structures for relevant events. Moving on to the financial section within the report, section 7.1 reflects that the number of events supported can vary from year to year. It is estimated that the Council's average contribution in facilitating these events would cost approximately £15,000 per annum. This cost can be accommodated through existing revenue budgets within police services. With regards to resources, there will be a slight impact on resources in the form of staff who are required to facilitate the TTRO process and traffic management requirements for these events. But these resources will come from existing staffing levels and no additional resource is required. With regards to risk, not adopting the charging structure as detailed within section 5.9 puts the Council at risk of breaching its legal obligations. In conclusion, Convener, this report seeks to reflect the Council's obligation under the applicable law, and specifically Article 11 of the ECHR, Right to Peaceful Assembly. This places a responsibility on public authorities to absorb the costs associated with non-commercial gatherings such as public processions, charitable and some community events. For events which do not attract this protection, where an entry or administration charge is levied to attend an event, it is reasonable to expect event organisers to cover the costs associated with TTROs and other traffic management requirements, partly or in full, as detailed under section 5.9. The recommendations detailed under section 2 of this report provides general clarity for officers and event organisers on what events should and should not be charged for associated TTROs and traffic management requirements, and ensures compliance of the ECHR, with all events being assessed individually, having regard to specific circumstances of the event. And that's a summary of the report, Convener.
Thank you, Mr Gardner. Now I'll go to Councillor Gardner.
Without the D. Yeah, thank you, Convener, and thanks to Douglas. It's great following Douglas because he covers absolutely everything in the report, so there's no need for me to do it. I'd also like to thank David Maley, who the both of them have kept me up to speed in this one, and if I can just pass on my congratulations to David, because I'm sure he would have been here, but he's just had an addition to his family, so congratulations to him and their family. As stated in this policy, will provide clarity over who is and who is not responsible for TTROs and traffic management costs for community events and public processions. I think, as I say, I think Douglas has covered everything fully, and I've nothing really to add other than I move the recommendations, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Convener. I'd just like to formally second the report and welcome the recommendations. And I believe this will have a positive impact on the galas and fairs across our whole district, specifically mentioning the Bowness Fair Day, and ensure that it will go a long way to ease the burden that it takes to have these gala days across the district, and hope that it will go a long way to help the Bowness Fair Committee put forward the best day of the year. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Devine. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. TROs. First question, before I read out a comment from my colleague, Councillor Anne Ritchie from Bowness, who has done a great deal of work regarding this matter. If you could answer the question after the comment, that would be helpful. Who paid previously, who did not pay previously? I think that would clarify for the wider public out there why this has come about. But firstly, I'll read Councillor Ritchie, the Bowness members' comments. I would like to thank all the officers that have carried out the work to bring the public procession event charging structure to the executive today. This work has been carried out within a few days to make sure it was on the agenda today. It's good to know that all events are going to be dealt with on their own merits. This affects the Bowness Children's Fair Festival, Buzness, Grangemouth Children's Day, other gala days, organisations within Grangemouth, Bowness, Blackness, and all other airts and pairs of our district. I have been updating the Bowness Fair executive of the progress from the start of my discussions with officers on this agenda item. And I have to thank you on behalf of them, and like everyone else today, they are trying to cut back on their costs for the fair day, and this will help the committee enormously. I would say these comments go for Grangemouth Children's Day and Denny Gala Day. I don't know if they will fall under that, and other arts and fairs. I urge all groups to come together today and approve this item. It will help many organisations within your wards to cut the costs of their running events. With regards, Councillor Anne Ritchie, Bowness Ward.
Okay, Mr. Gary, do you want to answer the questions?
Yeah, thanks, Convener, through yourself. I don't have a detailed list, Councillor Spears, of who was and who wasn't charged. However, as detailed within the report, and as you rightly say, supported by Councillor Anne Ritchie, this report brings a level of clarity so that, you know, when we do receive TTROs, they are managed on a consistent basis. So henceforth, you know, we will, if approved by executive today, we have a charging structure that we can refer to.
I'm certainly glad there's parity now, because there was not parity before, and if you could maybe send that on to me at a later date, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Nimmo.
Yep, thanks, Convener. I just have a question for Douglas. Douglas, the fact that we've not had a policy in place to cover this in the past, does that mean we've been in breach of our legal obligations up until today?
Maybe that's one for Mr. Moody to take.
I think the answer to that is no, Convener. I think in cases in the past where it has been clear that there is an Article 11 protection for any assembly, there wouldn't have been the charge levied. I think what this does is make the matter clearer, puts it down on paper, and allows for consistent application of that principle. I think what it also does is takes a more expansive view of what is entitled to the 100% cost coverage by the council in relation to processions, and expands that to the wider community events such as the Bowness Fair Day, which has been talked about already. So no, I don't think we have been in breach of our legal obligations in the past.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
I'll be quick, Convener. Thank Douglas for the report. I think it's only fair that the rest of the people and committees that previously paid are not doing it now. And I just reiterate what in page 185, 8.1, people died for so we could get this article 11, the right for peaceful assembly. Very, very important for our country. So thank Douglas, Convener, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerr. There is no other indication to speak, therefore can we approve the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank
Agreed.
you. We'll now, just as we change over from one part of the agenda to the other, just have a brief 10-minute break to allow people to get a drink of water or whatever. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, can we come back, please? Thank you. We're now on to item 10, and it's the provisional financial outturn, and I'll go to Amanda Templeman. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Convener. The report in front of you today presents the provisional financial outturn for the Council's revenue budget for 22-23, and it is important that I emphasise that provisional outturn will form part of the Council's annual accounts, and it's therefore subject to external audit. And through that process, our auditors could seek changes to the accounting treatment that we've used in certain areas, and members will be notified if there is any significant changes that arise. The report itself presents a positive picture for the outturn for the Council. The services by services outturn is shown in Appendix 1. Sorry, the service by service outturn is shown in Appendix 1, which is on page 199 of the agenda. And that shows that overall services underspent against budget by £1.6 million. Once other areas of the budget are built in, including capital charges, the underspend is £4.6 million. Earlier in the year, in February, the projection report to Executive showed an underspend of £1.9 million, so there's been an improvement of round about £2.6 million. The February report did highlight that there could be changes in two key areas which would impact on the outturn, and that has been the case. The first area was the teachers' strike. The February report included £700,000 of a one-off saving from the teachers' strike, and that reflected the strikes that had taken place at the stage that the report was prepared. But in the event, there were more strike days, and so a further £700,000 of one-off savings was achieved. The second area that we highlighted in the February report was energy. We had highlighted that officers were continuing to monitor the impact of price and usage against budget, and that the cost may not be high as originally budgeted for, but we were wary of making too much to adjust against the energy, particularly because we didn't have all the bills in. Now that we have all the bills in for the year, there was an improvement against the overall forecast for energy of £2.5 million. Those two areas were offset by a number of over and underspends across council budgets, and you can see that in the service summaries, which are on page 190 to 192 of the agenda. So the two areas that I've talked about, teacher strike and energy, are good illustrations of how the council benefits from non-recurring and recurring savings. So the savings from the teacher strike are a one-off benefit. That underspend will not be repeated in 23-24 unless there's further strikes. The savings in energy, however, are recurring, which means that there should be a benefit in 23-24 and potentially in future years as well, because the base starting point will be lower than we had anticipated. So work to calculate that will start once the annual accounts process is complete, which will be by the end of June. We'll bring the first projection report for 23-24 to Executive in August, and then we plan to bring an updated financial strategy, which will cover a 5-year period, to Council in September. So we've made the point in a number of reports that to tackle the Council's structural deficit, we need to be able to rely on recurring savings. So non-recurring savings tend to be less certain and certainly more difficult to plan for, and whilst they're welcome, they can't be relied upon for financial sustainability. The continuing area of pressure for the Council is children's services. The majority of the overspend within children's services sits within children and families social work, which is in large part due to pressures around residential and continuing care. As noted at paragraph 5.1.7 on page 191 of the agenda, the overspend is in part a result of the savings for closer to home not being delivered in 22-23, and you can see that again at section 5.3 of the report, which is on page 194 of the agenda. So the service is currently working to review the Closer to Home project. with a report expected to go to the Council of the Future Board in the summer. However, recognising the ongoing pressures, members can be reassured that the savings originally anticipated for 23-24 for Closer to Home were removed as part of the 1st of March budget setting process. So the position being reported this year doesn't negatively impact on the 23-24 position. So overall, the outturn for 22-23 is good news for the Council. Members will be aware that the Chief Executive had asked all Council officers to apply rigour to all spending decisions with the aim of returning an underspend in 22-23 and increasing the Council reserves. And so I think we have to take this opportunity to thank all the officers in the Council who have worked hard to try and achieve this. We've seen the benefit that an improved level of reserves can bring. At the 1st of March budget meeting, members approved the use of £4.5 million of reserves for various purposes which either support our priorities or help the Council to plan for future savings delivery. And those savings are summarised in Appendix 3 in the report, which is on page 201. And that's a good illustration of how reserves can be used effectively. So we will report back to Executive on projected spend against these reserves going forward, but for now they're just shown in one summary line. At paragraph 5.4.12 and at the table at the bottom of page 200. The housing outturn is shown in section 5.5 of the report, and overall spend on the HRA is anticipated to be within budget, albeit there has been some movement between the budget headings, which we can see in Appendix 5 on page 206. And finally, the conclusion of the report on page 198 highlights that there remains a lot of volatility in the economy, and that's mainly due to the difficulties in bringing inflation under control. So it remains to be seen how that will impact on the position for the Council in 23-24, but we will be providing regular updates throughout the year of any significant changes. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, and to thank you for all the officers for pulling this outturn together. I know that certainly the last year's not been particularly easy, and the future years are going to be just as challenging. As we continually see stubbornly high inflation, we are going to have continued challenges. And while there has been some positive movement within our finances in relation to a better outturn than expected, it will not resolve the long-term financial challenges of the Council, as these are not going to be recurring savings, these are one-off, and that will not help us reach that financial sustainability. The service concessions that we've applied for this year and for future years, we know only buy us some time to identify savings and allow them to be developed and progressed at an early stage. But the more that we are able to identify an earlier stage, the more opportunity we have to reach that more sustainable position and enable Council to get to a balanced position, which means that any service concessions that we then still have undeployed can potentially be used for investment, for example, in supporting our tourism strategy, as we've heard today, investment in our sport and leisure, or indeed our school estate. It's therefore critical that we continue to ensure that we deliver on savings plans and seek to identify further savings to meet a predicted budget gap over the next 5 years. The work that has been carried out by officers this year in particular, I think is commendable. That's been supported by the recruitment freeze and the robust management of budgets. However, as we go forward, that's going to be more and more difficult to do. Therefore, it's very important that we look to focus on that transformation and the alternative delivery of services going forward in order to help support the Council in its 5-year plan. And hopefully that we will continue to see a more stable trajectory going forward, but I'm happy to move the report. Councillor Garner.
Happy to second, reserving the right.
Thank you. I will open it up for questions or comment. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. A very interesting report. Teacher strikes save money. They might help with the school transport costs. When do you, question one, when do you expect the updated financial strategy to come forward? Question two, will we be having special attention for the departments that are not delivering on any projects, i.e. the one you mentioned, the social work department, especially regarding the Closer to Home project? Three, it's good to know that we have some reserves left and that they are helping. But can I ask letters of appeal to the Scottish Government, whose primary responsibility is to look after local government, have we had any response about them increasing our budget? Because it's decimating communities if some of the proposals for savings go ahead.
Amanda, do you want to do your best to answer some of those?
Thank you, convener. Thanks, Councillor Spears. So the financial strategy, we're going to be working on that, the figures after we get the accounts out of the way, which is the council will go to the auditors on the 30th of June, and then over July and August we'll be updating the figures for the following 5 years. We will bring the financial strategy to September Council for approval, but I would anticipate that we'll do briefings earlier on in September before it would come to Council. In terms of the special attention, we have been working, there's a working group set up, we've been working with particularly Children's and Families to look at the Closer to Home project, and as I say, they're due to report back to the Council of the Future Board. I think we were aiming for July, maybe August, but we are actively working with the service to see what we can do there. In terms of the letter of appeal to the Scottish Government, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, whether we got a response. What I would say is that there's a lot of work happening just now between COSLA and the Scottish Government to look at the fiscal framework, and that includes pulling together a lot of information. So all councils have been asked to feed in information on where their budget pressures are, what their financial gaps looking like, all these kind of things. So that's to inform those discussions. And I suppose a big part of those discussions is also around things like where money's directed to be spent, as opposed to where councils are given free rein to spend it on the priorities that they have. So those discussions are ongoing. My understanding is that they're planning to report in September on that piece of work.
But it looks pretty much like COSLA have not been a great servant to Falkirk Council. They've failed so far, and now we're kicking it down the road. I mean, the projected plans by this administration on asset realisation will have detrimental effects, especially to my town in Grangemouth. And you know, hearing back sometime isn't really good enough. We want to get a response by the Scottish Government, stating our problems and stating that we need help here, and that their primary responsibility is to look after local government.
I'm happy to give a response on that, Amanda. I think that's unfair to be directing that at an officer. We have to remember, Councillor Spears, that the Scottish Government has a fixed budget, just as councils do, and they have to present a balanced budget every year, and it's under significant pressure. There's a significant amount of the Scottish Government budget is being put towards supporting those around the cost of living crisis, which I don't think anybody would disagree with. As a result, that does mean that the other areas are limited. There has been recognition of the delivery of that local government has made, particularly during COVID, and there are discussions ongoing at a political level, supported by all political parties, around a new deal for local government. There has been a partnership agreement which will now go into discussions in the Scottish Parliament. It will be debated there in this month, and hopefully signed off thereafter in September. Alongside that, there is the fiscal framework that has been worked on, again cross-party within COSLA and with Scottish Government, around being able to, in the first instance, utilise the existing resources as broadly as possible, and that does look at areas where there's been directed spend to see if there can be greater flexibility to allow local authorities to deliver what suits their local authority, as opposed to being directed from national government, and that continues to be the case. So without additional resources from national government and from UK government to the Scottish Parliament, it makes it very difficult to give any more resources to any other parts of the portfolios across Scottish Government, including local government, but continued work is ongoing to look to improve that, and with the fiscal framework we would then have an opportunity to have a bit more assurity about the bid going forward.
I look forward to it coming before the Scottish Parliament, because it's something that's not usually raised, but I will take great interest in our local MSPs and list MSPs on their contribution to that debate. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? In which case, can we agree the report? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the capital programme outturn, and I think it's Mr. Kearney. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, Convener. This report presents a provisional capital outturn report for the General Fund and Housing. Similar to revenue, the figures will be subject to audit, and any significant changes will be reported back to members. The first part of the report, at sections 5.1 to 5.2, present the expenditure and funding of the General Fund programme. Of planned expenditure of circa 45 million, just under 40 million has been spent during the year, representing circa 88% of the budget. This is a significant improvement on the previous year, which was around 60%, and reflects the Council's response to the points raised in the Best Value Audit Report with regard to underspends and slippage, and the good work undertaken by all services via the Strategic Asset Management Board to provide a more realistic and deliverable capital programme. Further improvements and changes are planned for the current financial year, and these are detailed at 5.17. Sections 5.3 and 5.4 of the report pick up the housing capital programme. Despite difficult market conditions, noted at 5.3.3, housing capital expenditure represents circa 84% of the planned budget, again an improvement on the 67% from the previous year. For both capital programmes, the planned capital works for 23-24 financial year will be adjusted to reflect projects which have slipped or have had to be rescheduled. This in turn will impact on the Council's overall borrowing requirements and loan charges. The remaining sections of the report include the potential indicators at section 5.5, which are aimed at demonstrating capital spending plans are affordable, prudent and sustainable. At 5.6, the impact of the 22-23 programme on the Council's overall borrowing requirements. So despite an improvement in the spending performance from the previous year, ultimately lower expenditure than budgeted has reduced the overall borrowing required. At section 6.1 to 6.2, the movement and the final positions with capital grants and capital receipts carried forward are noted. The recommendations are at section 2, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you, Danny. And again, thank you to the work that's been ongoing across the board in relation to our capital programme, and indeed the realignment of our capital programme that has demonstrated that that was the right thing to do at that time, and I'm really pleased to see that review and restructure has been effective in helping us to reduce the slippage and deliver on projects, and indeed 80% of the budget is now being utilised. However, we recognise that there are still challenges remain due to the financial climate, construction inflation, which remains high, and the difficulties of supplies and workforce that have not gone away as yet, but we hope they continue to improve. Greater financial control over the project planning has helped to be able to move things on, but recognise that some of the impacts we are facing are by national policies and decisions made at a national level that we are having to contend with, and that still brings its difficulties. But what we cannot forget is that we continue to deliver on a £44 million capital programme plan, and that's a significant amount of investment into our local communities. Also, it clearly demonstrates the links to our council plan and our council priorities, and demonstrates to our communities that we are delivering on what we'd agreed with them. Housing capital programme continues. We've seen new sites starting and others coming to completion. Construction inflation still remains high and is still a challenge. Funding for new build will need to be given further consideration going forward, and how we deliver on that as a result of the challenges, unless the construction industry settles down a bit more. But we recognise that we've still got high demand for housing, and we still need to deliver on that demand going forward. So again, thank you to all the work for those involved in the capital programme and delivering on the projects that we are starting to see come to fruition, and I'm happy to move the report. Okay, Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. In point 5.11, it says that there was £0.2 million spent on energy efficiency and carbon reduction. This is, I believe, one of the best ways, energy efficiency, to reduce Scope 3 emissions, putting us on track to meet the 2045 target. So I was just wondering that if that figure will be increasing in years in the future.
Okay. I'm not sure quite who's best placed to take that particular question. As Michael's not here at this moment. Amanda?
I can get a little bit more detailed information for you, Councillor Bundy. My understanding is that there will be further spend on that, because there was a significant, if you remember, there was a significant level of investment. There was £10 million agreed. We then took some of that to apply for electric vehicles, and the remainder of that was going to be prioritised on various energy efficiency works across a number of buildings. I'm not sure exactly of that sort of balance. I think there was around about 5.6 million in total that was going to be spent. I'm not sure of that balance, how much is due to be spent in 23-24, but I can certainly get that detail for you and send it on.
Thank you.
Mr. Kettrick might be able to give a wee bit more information.
Thank you, Convener. As Amanda has said, there was approximately £5 million allocated for fleet replacement. The remainder of the money has been prioritised for secondary schools and high energy usage buildings. There is a programme being implemented of solar panels, insulation, BMS system upgrading, heating upgrading, and I'm happy to provide you with further information on that. I think the programme currently sits at this year and next year at similar levels as to what's been passed.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. We are talking about the dual carriageway at West Mains.
No, it's a capital programme outturn, Councillor Spears.
It says here, proposed procurement strategy for the appointment of engineering contracts.
That's the next item. We've not gone to that one yet. If you could just hold your fire until we get to, we're only on item 11, Councillor Spears.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back at 12.
Councillor Bryce.
Yeah, I am pleased to second this report. I think, as it says, particularly in the capital one, there has been a number of challenges, and I've covered a number of them over a number of meetings. Remembering this is obviously a review on last year, if it maybe assists as well on the housing capital side, obviously we're putting in triple glazing in lieu of an older double glazed or single glazed. Will obviously make the houses more efficient, and if you think of one of the biggest bits of property we own is actually the housing stock, the replacement heating systems, which are actually more energy efficient themselves, are all adding it, as well as the external fabric improvements. And if you add them together, and there's a rough figure, it's about 29 million in that year. So there is a significant spend going on that side. And for example, the window and door replacements is 15 million a year over the next 7 years. So it's accelerated a little bit last year. So hopefully that maybe assists Councillor Bundy. It was going to be part of my seconding this. One of the things when last year when I became housing convener, and I'd met with Mrs Algie and Mr Gillespie, and they said, what's your top priority? I says, my top priority is that we maintain or improve our capital spend, because that's where the people of Falkirk see a difference. That's when we're actually spending money to improve their environment, the homes they live in. As part of that, that goes for both sides. On the general fund capital programme, as well as the housing capital programme. But with both of them being over 80%, as I think Mr Craney had said earlier on, there was 67%. I remember the year before, I think they were even lower than that. But we will all have to recover from what was a terrible pandemic, and this has been one of the bits of consequential damage, I would call it, going forward from that. But we are getting there. It is improving at 83%. It is what you would call very good. That credit for that, both on the general capital and the housing capital, has to go to our officers, some who are very, very new, Mr Kettrick. And I think we seem to have, and no disrespect to any previous officers, but we seem to have a set of can-do officers who are actually pushing these things and making them happen. I mean, the acceleration in the spend on the buying back houses and acceleration on the window door replacements, I think is something that's got to be welcomed as well. So I say thank you to the officers, and I hope that people of Falkirk will start to see the benefits coming out in their house, in their homes and their buildings.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr?
I'll be brief, convener. Anybody give me an update on what's happening in the house at Torwood?
I'm not sure that Mr Gillespie's still with us, but
Convener, I will certainly get an update. My understanding is the site inspections are still underway to be able to hand the site over, but I will try and get an update in terms of the timescales for that for you. Thank you.
That's fine, convener. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, there are no other lights. Are we happy to agree the report? Okay, thank you. Move on to item 12, which is prior consideration report procurement of a contract to consent to Westfield A9, A904 improvements, and it's Mr Kettrick.
Thank you, convener. The report sets out the proposed procurement strategy for the appointment of an engineering contractor to construct the Westfield A9, A904 improvements. This is a prior consideration report for Council Executive to consider in line with contract standing orders relative to major contracts. The proposed A9, A904 improvements at Westfield were previously reported as part of the TIF update in May 2003 and is the largest and most significant infrastructure investment scheme to be delivered through that programme. As outlined in the report, the Council appointed Balfour Beatty via the National Scape Civil Engineering and Infrastructure Works Framework back in March 2020, and this was notified to all elected members. The scope of that contract was for Balfour Beatty to provide early contractor involvement which would support the development of the Westfield A904 improvement scheme and provide deliverability awareness and estimated cost information. This approach has provided a high degree of cost clarity, increased project delivery confidence and enabled the development of wider community benefits which will be implemented through the delivery phase at an early stage of the project. It is proposed that the procurement strategy for appointment of the suitable contractor for delivery of the works again utilises the SCAPE framework and seek to appoint Balfour Beatty to execute the construction phase of the project. As Balfour Beatty via SCAPE, as advised, have already been involved in the pre-construction development of the project to date, there are clear advantages in terms of continuity of delivery, and their in-depth knowledge and understanding of the project will be of benefit. Under the SCAPE framework, Balfour Beatty are obliged to provide an open book approach to works pricing, and therefore the Council will have full visibility of the competitive market testing. Costs along with construction programme and delivery plan proposed by the contractor will continue to be assessed to ensure continued achievement of best value as demonstrated. The company were previously and are now proposed to be appointed through the SCAPE framework, which is fully compliant procurement route, and both legal and procurement teams are satisfied with the proposals contained in the report. The scope of the infrastructure involved at Westfield and the importance and complexity of the road network in the area means that having a demonstrably experienced contractor such as Balfour Beatty working alongside the Council through the SCAPE framework provides a higher level of assurance on delivery costs and greater certainty on delivery timescales against other potential procurement routes. In conclusion, Convener, following Council Executive approval in May 2023 to progress the delivery of the TIF programme and the Westfield A9, A904 improvements, we are now required to procure a suitable contractor to execute the construction works. The proposed procurement strategy will allow this to happen expediently. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. The proposed A9, A904 improvement is the largest and most significant infrastructure investment scheme to deliver to the TIF investment. It's a significant infrastructure investment that will enable the economic development to progress within the area and improve the flow, reducing some of the emissions of idling that often happens, particularly with the backlog of vehicles within that particular area. I think the framework that we're proposing enables the space, but also limits the risks to the council and indeed ensures that any liabilities sit with the contractors and not with the council in taking this forward. So other than that, it's quite a technical report. It is about the procurement, not about the actual project itself. I'm therefore happy to approve the recommendations. Councillor Garner.
Thank you. Yourself and Mr Kettrick have covered everything well, so I'll just second and reserve the right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. My question might appear a bit strange because checking the map, this road appears to be in West Mains and not Westfield. So if you go in and Google the map, you'll see quite clearly it is in Grangemouth, so I tend to know my areas.
The extent of the works extend from the Earlsgate roundabout all the way through to just short of the college and past what will be the new Falkirk Gateway site. Yeah, so it straddles both Grangemouth and Falkirk.
Mr Spears, could you let the officer finish, please, and then I'll allow you to come back for a further question.
I'll try to direct him. Westfield is opposite the community stadium. The other side of the road is the Helix and West Mains. So have we got a bit of confusion of the name here?
The answer is no, as the project has always been referred to as Westfield, which sits in the centre of the scheme, which is along both the A9, the A904, and covers, as I say, from Earlsgate all the way to just short of the college. It also travels north up past to the Helix, to the first roundabout there, and also the improvement works come down past to the fire station. So I think our geography is not too far off.
As we know, this is the most narrow part of the Green Belt in central Scotland and vitally important, not just for animal and bird migration, but it's vitally important that we get this right. And I would imagine starting by getting the name right is a good place to start.
Okay, there are no other lights. I'll be happy to agree the report. Thank you. Okay, item 13 is the community asset transfer of Sunnyside Sports Pavilion, and we're back with Mr Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of the report is to consider the disposal of the Council's ownership of Sunnyside Sports Pavilion by community asset transfer to Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club. The main recommendations in the report, in addition to the actual transfer of the pavilion, which is shown located in Appendix 1, are to note the assessments that confirm these proposals are in line with the Council's statutory obligations, agree a disposal price for the property of £1, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project, and instructs the Director of Police Services to issue a formal decision notice and conclude any necessary legal agreements to dispose the conveyance in accordance with this report. As outlined in the report, Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club currently occupy the pitch areas around the pavilion, and whilst having their own clubhouse and facilities have occupied the pavilion for several years, the club have approached the council with a view to progressing a project that would see them own the pavilion to enable the delivery of a community-led transformation of the property, which would create extensive changing facilities for teams and referees, with integrated showers, new toilets, a new physio room, a first aid suite, an extended gym, plus an additional area for lockers and equipment storage. Part of the proposals would also include the recladding of the exterior of the building and the installation of a new and efficient and sustainable heating system. A copy of their application under the Community Empowerment Act is included in Appendix 2, and within Appendix 3 is a copy of the support and business case for the proposals. To support the delivery of the project, the club have secured £250,000 from the Scottish Rugby Union and approximately £146,000 from the Council's Community Choices Fund, which will also support floodlighting installations. The proposed disposal price of £1 has been evaluated, and the benefits of the proposal are summarised in the report. The council would, in such circumstances, be foregoing a market value of the property of £35,000, which has been independently evaluated by Rydens Chartered Surveyors. Overall, the assessment by officers of the proposed disposal consider that the proposal outcomes and impacts is very strong, that the club have good governance and financial arrangements in place, and that best value characteristics are evidenced and contained throughout the overall approach outlined in the business case from the club. Notable comments were that the approaches to projecting benefits are considered both robust, and there is a clear demonstration of value for money and the suitability for asset transfer. In conclusion, officers are satisfied that the proposal is compliant with legal requirements on the disposal of assets at less than market value, and the council will realise an annual revenue saving through transferring the property of approximately £20,000 per annum and remove a liability for long-term capital investment. A full assessment of the proposals has concluded that, as stated, the club have strong leadership, the business plan is comprehensive, viable and sustainable. The transfer of the pavilion will support community empowerment, enable future investment which would not otherwise be made by the council, and deliver significant benefits, including enhanced provision of sport activities with the associated positive health and wellbeing outcomes. And I'm happy to take any questions, Convener.
Thank you, Mr Keswick. Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener, and thanks once again to Mr Kettrick and indeed Arthur Berg. It's pleasing to see this report coming forward, and if agreed, Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club will be the new owners of Sunnyside Pavilion in Camelon. Built on the site where the Falkirk Rugby Club now play, the pavilion was the former washhouse for the iron foundry and has remained unchanged over the years since it started being used for changing rooms. The club has ambitious plans to redevelop and expand the existing building to create a new exciting community facility, which will include 4 full-size changing rooms, 2 referee changing rooms, a new physio, first aid suite, extended gym and new laundry. With the funding of £250,000 already secured from Scottish Rugby Union, the club has also received an award from Falkirk Council's Community Choices programme earlier this year to help with the cost of an extension, floodlights and pitch drainage improvements. The transfer of ownership of Sunnyside Pavilion to the Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club is a great example of communities being empowered to manage and improve assets. As owners, the club can seek external funding streams not available to the council, and it will be exciting to watch the pavilion transform into an attractive modern multi-purpose hub delivering a variety of sport, health and wellbeing to Falkirk's communities. The commitment and response from dozens of local clubs, groups and organisations who engage in the SPR and express an interest in taking over council properties highlights how committed local people are to their neighbourhoods. I'm happy to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I'm happy to second. I know that this has been an aspiration for the local community over a good number of years to come together and develop a community sports hub, and there has been a lot of buy-in from a number of groups within the area, and it is good to see that this has now come to something more formal and now coming to fruition. As Councillor Gardner says, it's enabled to access external funding that the council wouldn't have been able to access, to allow the refurbishment and redesign of the brick built building, and enable that to become a usable facility. Most importantly, it does comply with the legislation in the community in the terms of the community asset transfer, and the community will have access to this and be able to utilise it, not just for sports, etc., but other opportunities for events within the common space that will be created within the facility. So I think this is a great project to see to come to fruition. Again, it's one that's been a long term, it's been built up over a number of years. But also demonstrates that with the right capacity building, then assets such as this can be transferred into the community, and then be able to provide the support and evidence that will demonstrate a robust management, and hopefully we'll see that sustained for many years to come. I will now open it up for any questions or comments. Councillor Steinbeck.
Thanks, Convener. Content for this to be approved. Just have a couple of questions of general clarity, especially coming from groups post our March meeting of council. I think one question that's been raised myself is general clarity on community asset transfer as opposed to sale. Does the submission of this proposal create an obligation on the club to create the specific facilities outlined at 5.6, being the 4 full-size changing rooms downwards? Do they have to build that off the back of if we approve this?
The disposal contains a number of conditions, and that is the basis for us disposing at the £1, is that they have to deliver those benefits, otherwise it would be a market value transaction.
Thank you very much. My second question is on 7.10, in which it outlines that this would be transferred to an organisation of similar purposes if insolvent, which I think is highly unlikely in this case with such a competently run and valued community club such as Falkirk Rugby Club. Is it also correct if the facility is sold on that it will have to go to an organisation of similar purpose?
Generally it would be, although the council also has a right of preemption installed in all their asset transfers.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. We've been talking about the benefits that Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club can have in terms of external funding, and I think it's important to put on record that the UK government, through the UK Community Ownership Fund, also gave £115,000 to Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club in December 2022 to further their investment into the community asset transfer and the Sunnyside Pavilion. So showing that the UK is helping empower Falkirk's community as well. And yeah, I wish Falkirk Rugby Football and Sports Club all the best. They do provide a lot of well, not only sports but community events in my ward, but also wider, and just wish them all the best, and hopefully they can get more external funding in the future and get more investment into Falkirk.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. I think this is welcome, and I congratulate Falkirk Rugby Club. I just hope that Community Choices are as kind to all other voluntary groups that are willing to take on assets, because that money will be much needed by them. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Councillor Spears, Community Choices is voted on by the communities, and it's not awarded by Falkirk Council. We make the pot of money available, but it's then voted on by the public. Therefore, the decisions are within the people's hands. Okay, there are no. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kerr.
I'll be quick, convener. Like the similar speakers, glad that this is came to fruition. The having played and changed in the changing rooms for many years, they were outdated, they were run down. So getting the rugby club to 4 full-size changing rooms and other facilities will be a great asset to them, and I wish them all the best. Thanks, convener.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Garner, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, and it's just a bit of a wee bit of point of information in the back of what Councillor Steinbank says. I'm sure the SRU will have stipulations and conditions in with the funding they've given as well to make sure it is what they come across. And just for Councillor Bundy, I'd like to pass on our thanks to the UK Government for giving us our money back to help with this project. Thank you.
Okay, are we then happy to approve the report? Agreed. Okay. Okay, we now move to exclude the public. Do we agree for the next item to exclude the public from that?
Agreed.
Yep.